Hey boys, it's your old stepdaddy Fred Hophead. Thought I'd make another video. Got a cat being a little bit of a pain in the ass right here. I got a space kitty right here that she's on her throne and she may raise hell and whatnot. But I thought I would tell you about uh, my successful career as a helping professional. And oh, how it has completed me as a person. Okay. So, anyways, you boys knew that I was licensed, or I am licensed. I'm licensed currently as a therapist, but I'm actually going to turn it in. I'm turning in my license this year. Um, I have I've attempted to apply at many levels, many different ways, but they won't. Not me. Um, I've probably applied in the past 2 years for two, 3 dozen jobs, which some of you guys out there might say, "Oh, that's chump change," you know. Eh, well, and I can remember my grandfather, who was a real asshole, but a stubborn asshole. When I collected stamps, he gave me postcards where he had a whole box of rejection postcards when he got out of college from his chemistry class to go to work as a chemist. Um, and I have heard of some authors that would actually wallpaper rejection letters in their room after they've written stories that had been rejected by the whatever, this and that of the time. Okay, yeah, now I can see. So maybe I'm just a quitter. I don't know. Maybe I'm 57. Maybe maybe it's cheaper to hire someone younger and brighter and fresh out of school, take less pay, ready to earn their stripes, just like I did back in 1993 when I started working with people. I started doing therapy with people my first time. I was an intern from my master's degree school, and I would rotate through the different mental health clinics. I would go to Plymouth, North Carolina, which is a very rustic, out of the way place. Crabbers, and it was on the coast, and uh, tough people, good people. And I did an internship once a week. I believe it was once. Some I did twice a week. It depended. And I had a very small caseload. And then I would also go, part of my route was doing therapy, providing therapy, doing therapy. I was an intern. I was learning therapy. Therapy is an art. It's an art form. It is. Don't let anybody, there's no science. Therapy is an art form to help a person find their way. But, anyways, blah, 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 whatever. I went to Plymouth and then Washington, North Carolina, which the locals call Little Washington. So yeah, you had Little Washington, and then you had Washington D.C. That's Big Washington, I guess. But everybody called it Little Washington when I was there. And then I also did an internship in Williamston, North Carolina. And I will tell you three little stories from each of my internships. My internship in Plymouth used to be the mental health clinic, was in the old public health clinic before it closed down and they made a new public health building. My office in the old public health building, which was the mental health building after they got the new public health building, if that's making any sense. My office that I borrowed, I mean it wasn't mine per se, but it was in the old x-ray room. And I guess back in the 30s, man, I guess x-rays were just out of control because when I would come into the office, it was like I closed a vault door behind me. It was just a very interesting situation. Let's see. In Little Washington, I was part of a group therapy. I was a co-therapist with a very awesome therapist, and I can't remember her name, and it wouldn't be right to throw it out there anyways, but I hope she's living her best life. But she taught me so much about group therapy and Yalom-based group therapy, process focused. Uh, Yalom was the book that I read for that. But anyways, she was such a kind lady, and I'll never forget one time she was so worried because after we did group therapy, she had a screw in her tire. She had a nail in her tire, and she's afraid she couldn't get home, and she drove a good little bit. So I was like, I got you. And she was worried and nervous. So we went to auto parts store. I got a tire repair kit. And I was just like, you got to trust me. I've done this before. And so we went to a gas station where they had the quarter air machines. So I pulled the nail out and the air went out. And she was like, oh, God. I'm like, I got you. I promise, you know. And then I took the little tool and I reamed the hole out. So, you know, and then put the tire repair patch piece on, and I put it in the hole. And I twisted it out and put it in there, and took my pocket knife and got it flush. And I just said, well, let's just sit for just a little bit, let everything seize up. And we sat for about 10, and then I filled the air in her tire, and it stayed. And she thought I had parted the sea. Boy, she was so, I was so tickled. She was really a great person. So I don't, she may be dead now. I don't know. But anyways, and then in Williamston was an odd duck because in Williamston, the therapists were still smoking in their offices. You know, I did, I did smoke I did smoke uh, then, but I didn't smoke in the office. And the place smelled like cigarette smoke. And I remember there was one therapist that didn't have credentials, but what I back then, just counselors just were there. He'd been grandfathered in. I don't know what. But God, he was such a forlorn man, and all he did was juvenile court cases and kids that were having troubles, and pretty much his whole spiel was, "You ought to try to do better next time, okay?" that was his big. he was something else. So, anyways, I did those three little routes and did my internships doing therapy, and I would cassette tape, little quit cat. I would put all my therapy sessions would be on cassette tape, and then I would take them to my therapy advisor, a person that would review my tapes. Oh my God, there's nothing more nervous and more nerve-wracking on the planet than a supervisor. And I picked on purpose. I picked the toughest one. He was the head of the program. He was the he ran the psychology department, and nobody wanted him. Everybody was. We had a class of seven. Probably 370 people probably applied for the master's program, and I was one of the seven. But all the professors got a supervisor, and I was like, I want the director. I want to learn from him. And boy, did I get it. Let me tell you what, did I get it. Now, he would, oh my God, he'd listen to the cassette tapes. I'd feel like 2 damn inches tall. I mean, oh God, he's like, what? I remember he'd sit there, he's like, what in the hell are you where are you going with this? I'd be, he made me cry probably, I don't know, one or two times. Um, Forgive me, I'm gonna take a couple of I forgot my pills I was supposed to take. But he'd make me cry. He would make me cry. You're a tough old stepdaddy. Well, you see me cry. So that ain't a big deal. But anyways, so I finished my master's degree, got my degree, clinical psych, and went for my LPA license. Oh, just for the record, everything I'm saying is a damn lie. So don't believe a word of this. This is just a fiction, work of fiction in my head. And everybody that's in my stories are made up, just made up stories. And if they happen to coincide with real people, then that's just one of them, I don't know, weird coinky dinks, one of them coincidences like you see in the beginning of the movie. And then blah, blah, fictional, or this is all. Okay, so let me continue with my lie. Um, got my degree, got my master's as a master's level psychologist. And then I went to go get hired close to where I live. And then back then there was county mental health. So county mental health was where I went to work. And so I signed on sometime in 1997. I think it was June. And I hired on for $34,000 a year. And if I passed my licensing exam, it would go to 35 or 36,000. And if I didn't get my license, well, I was out the door. So I basically lived and breathed my work until I could finally make it down to Raleigh and take my licensing exam. Oh, there was not such a terrible time in your life as doing that. Oh, you get your master's degree. You've done so much reading. God, read so much stuff. Reading about testing and reading about therapy and reading about read. And then you come home, you'd go to work and you'd see people and try to work through them with cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, going through thinking errors and some positive self-talk and challenging irrational thoughts and this, that, the other thing. And then you'd come home and you'd read about it all night. And you'd read about ethics, but I passed it, not at the PhD level, which didn't matter to me. I didn't have no money. I didn't have any money uh, for that, and my parents weren't shelling no money out for me, and and that bothered me because my grandfather made made my the man that raised me. He promised him that he would pay for me as long as I wanted to go to school, but that didn't happen. The man that raised me decided to spend a lot of money and work part time for the rest of his life. It'd be basically a part time lawyer and a full time asshole. Son of a bitch that he is. Anyway, so I went to work. So there I was. Boy, I was ready to go. And I really wanted to work with survivors of abuse. And you boys know that, you know, I was physically, sexually abused by people that raised me. And I was hoping that I could do that kind of work. But back in 97, particularly where I worked, the county mental health system I worked, I was working with children and families. And they said, no, 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 you can't work with survivors of abuse, especially sexual abuse, because um, you're a man, and men can't do that kind of work. And I was like, okay, so I did family therapy, focusing on the children, and it was hard work. Uh, Most of the work involved in bringing the parents in. Parents are resistant sometimes. They were more likely than not, they just wanted to kind of drop their kid off at the door and then go shopping or whatever for an hour and come pick them up. And I'm like, yeah, I've adjusted the carburetor and we blew out the air filter. Here's your kid. But they didn't really get the fact that they needed to kind of help in the work. All the best work I did was when the parents were involved. But also, since I was out of school, I was back then the probably the most practiced tester, which is what a master's level psychologist does in this state. That's supposedly the edge of a licensed psychological associate, is their ability to do intellectual testing and personality testing. And so I was proficient in a lot of different tests. And I did a whole lot of testing, intellectual testing, using back in the day, it was the WAIS-R. That was a long time ago. Uh, I was using the WISC-3 for children for intellectual testing, MMPI-2, personality testing, some of the older kind of psychodynamic construct kind of tests, the thematic apperception test. I was proficient in giving and scoring the Rorschach ink blot test, so did that. Did a lot of testing, but my job officially was 50% of the time I was doing testing and seeing clients. 50% of the time I was going to 3 different areas, schools, and working in the schools as an in-house type of therapist, working with kids that the teachers were having problems with. Um, that was a tough time. It was a tough job. I was part of a team of folks, and interdisciplinary team of people, social worker from the Department of Social Services, myself, therapist, and then a public health nurse from the health department. I did not fare too well with my coworkers. I think it might have had a lot to do with I was green. Um, I was new to the job. Um, I had a lot of pride at passing my licensing. I got this tattoo for passing my licensing exam. I think it's an ancient symbol that means educated asshole. I believe that's what that one means. Semi-educated asshole. But anyways, we didn't get along. I mean, it's not that we didn't get along, and maybe I was in my youth. I was maybe too brash. A new person typically, I guess, they're kind of new in their job and wanting to do their best. And I I can admit to that. Being a person that wants to do their best, but you know, these ladies was older than me, and I think they could have handled me better. But the first cussing I ever really got was from the social worker and the nurse teaming up on me. And um, I forget what it was. I think I was trying to sit down with them and talk to them about how we wanted to do schedules because we had to share an office in all the schools. But boy, they gave me the riot act. They really did. Wow. They called me things, this, that, and the other. But, anyways, bared through it, pulled up my big boy pants, and kept going. That's all you can do. So, anyways, I gave given Kitty she needs a little bit of throat medicine. She has a cough. So, but anyways, from there, I did that for a while, 50% working with the kids in the office. And then the first supervisor that ever hated me or just didn't like who I was as a person, he was from up north. And before anybody from this is for my two boys, but if anybody up north is watching, I love all you folks from up north. I ain't got a problem. The only problem with people up north I got is the family that I have up north. My family up north, you know, I don't know. They, but the rest of the folks up north, I do not have a bone to pick. I'm a proud flag waver of the flag of the Republic. I am absolutely a Union lover through and through. But this guy didn't like me. And it come to pass I was doing family therapy with a single mom and her child. Her child had some serious behavior problems where he lacked manners. Just a good old fashioned way to put it. He had buffaloed his mama and he kind of ran things, and we were trying to work on her taking control. And one of the things that I would always do is give parents permission to hold their children in timeout in the office in a safe manner of holding the child. And I would be non-committal, like, hey, mom, your kid's trying to throw my computer monitor on the floor. What do you think we ought to do about that? And she's like, oh, yeah, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I got a suggestion. Why don't you grab your kid, because you are bigger than he is, hold him. And watch your head. Keep your head back while you're holding him so he'll try to knock your teeth out. But just hold him and we'll just talk through your feelings while you're holding your child. Tell me about your anxiety. Tell me about, we just try to talk so that she could go through the stress of that because it's very stressful when you've got a child that's doing damage to property and you got to put them in timeout and they're just not going to do no way at all. But anyways, he was screaming. He's raised can't raise the tail. She was holding it. I got done with the session, and it did take about, I don't know, half an hour for him to come. He's like, "You need to come in my office right now." I'm like, "Yes, sir. Okay." And he sit me down. He says, "Let me tell you what." Now his office adjoined mine. We shared a wall. He said, "I'm gonna tell you one thing. Don't you ever lay a hand on a child in this building again. I will fire you. Don't you ever." And I said, "Well, Dr. So and so." I was like, "You you got it all wrong. I heard you had that kid in there." I said, "No, sir, no such thing. His mama was holding her child so as not to destroy property." Oh boy, did he didn't know where to go with himself after that. And I'm like, I would never lay hands on a child unless I had the authority and the training to do so. And boy, did he back up double quick, but he did not like me. He was from New York City, boy. Let me tell you what, he certainly knew his craft, and apparently he could see through the wall and see me holding that kid down. I could just imagine what he was thinking through his mind. I had that kid probably all wrapped up in a headlock. That's the way he wanted to see it, anyways. But, anyways, so I did that for probably 4 years, working in the school system. And I gotta say, my favorite school was the poorest school that I went to, working in the school where the poor kids went. I went to a rich kids school. I went to a middle class school, and then I had the school that was for the poor kids. And that was my favorite school. I don't know if it was just kind of what I was used to, but I really loved that school. I had one case where there wasn't nothing anybody could do apparently, and the kid would come. This was at the rich school, and this was the teacher's complaint. This kid's sleeping in class. He's sleeping in class, and I don't like it, and I want you to do something about it. Gosh, I look blurry. I don't know if. Well, it don't matter. You know what the hell I look like anyway, as long as you can hear me. So, anyways, I knew what was going on, and I figured it out. And what was happening is his mama and and himself and his older brother were living together in a trailer park, uh, not far from the school. And remember, this is the rich kids' school. But at the rich kids' school, there were some poor kids that went there. God Almighty, I look bad. Auto, do I? I dare not hit auto. I don't know. I'm scared. Okay, well, maybe. Okay, there we go. Maybe we go with that. But anyways, the reason that he was so tired is because um, he had to keep from being molested by his older brother. But DSS came in and looked, and they couldn't prove anything was going on. And so basically, the best advice I could give to the mom was to lock the door and sleep with the youngest boy in the bedroom and talking to my supervisor and talking to DSS, and they couldn't get much done because they, I don't know. Um, People say DSS wants to take kids away. That's the last thing they want to do. DSS don't want to take no kids away. DSS whole purpose is to keep families unified. If anybody comes to you and say DSS took my kids, there's typically a damn good reason. But it wasn't reason enough to do anything for this situation. So basically, I bought that boy sun drops. And every morning I'd see him, he'd come in smiling. I'd give him a sun drop. He'd drink his sun drop. We'd talk. And I'd tell him about staying safe. And I'd tell him about him letting me know if anything hurt anybody or anything hurt him. He said he would. And his mama was so good to work with. She was so out of her mind with worry. So, anyways, so let's see if I can think of any other story. Anyways, that's about it from me doing 50% family therapy, children's therapy, and testing, and then going to the schools. Now, since I wasn't allowed to, as because I was a man, I wasn't allowed to work with survivors of abuse, not sexual abuse. I did get one or two physical abuse cases, and um, and then wow, I just remember one other case that really got me. Um, it had come to pass that a young boy witnessed his older brother die due to an accident, a collision. And it was very graphic what he saw. And the school was up in arms. And it was pretty big deal in the school system uh, to make sure that they at least demonstrated that they were trying to do something. And in turn, my supervisors and the people I worked with were demanding something be done, and they gave me the case. And so that was shuffled onto me. And I said, well, what are his symptoms? And they're like, oh, it just happened 2 days ago. And I'm like, folks, the kid's not even had a moment to breathe. I'm like, let this bereavement take its course. Let the sadness go through. He's got to work through this on his own. If we see symptoms, then let's bring him in. But let's just not rush and push a stranger on this young man. You know, he's going through so much. And it was a direct fucking order, of course, that he had to be seen. By goddamn, he was going to be seen. Well, see him, I did. So we've got a grieving father bringing his grieving son to come see me for bereavement. And there's not even, I mean, hardly funerals arrangement been made or anything. And boys, you're going to come to a point where the system just gets so dadgum screwed up. Oh, you got to eat your damn ethics. And so he comes in, kid comes in, looks at me, and I'm like, well, how are you, young man? He throws up all over my floor. Poor little fella. I can remember that to this day. I'm going to cry a little bit some, so But I felt so bad for him having to go through another thing, and his father was crying, and I looked at that man and I said, "Look, sir, I don't know why they made you do this. I tried to tell everybody y'all had personal stuff to take care of. You didn't need this." And I looked at him and I said, "Don't bring him back here unless he needs it. You guys pull together as a family, and I apologize for this. And I don't know why they were forcing that on him and on his son. And he was so well-meaning, and but you don't first therapy on some. You don't even have symptoms. You don't drill a hole in your tooth when there ain't even a cavity yet. I just, but God, that made me sad. So I said, you take your young man down the back stairs. And I told him, I said, what I'm going to put down to save both of us is you're refusing treatment at this time because you want to handle your family and see them through the tough times. And if you notice any problems, you'll come back to us. And he agreed. We made a pact. And I hope that young man is doing good. So, anyways, so I got a lot of the kids with behavioral problems, little tough guys, as I called them. And I got kids that would, steal cars at 11 years old, or take stuff from stores, or uh, juvenile court probation cases where I worked with juvenile court counselors. And it just kind of went, that was just kind of how I gravitated. I worked towards the whole continuum of reactive attachment disorder, go into oppositional defiant disorder, graduate into conduct disorder, hopefully not. But then from conduct disorder, then you got antisocial personality disorder. And then after that, well, then you had psychopathy, the PhD of bad. But anyways, I worked with those kids, and then the program where I went to the schools, it quit. They shut it down. Apparently, it was not working out or whatever, and boss man says to me, big man, the head man in charge, he comes to me and says, now you're going to do 50% therapy and 50% day treatment. Day treatment is what I went into next. So I was doing testing, I was doing therapy, and then I was working at a day treatment facility. It was a group effort brought by the school system and mental health back when we had county mental health. And I worked with kids from kindergarten through sixth grade that had serious behavioral and emotional difficulties. And I was actually very professionally gifted with the chance to work with children that had psychosis, childhood psychotic disorders, children that were hearing voices and seeing things, and um, they it's very rare. Schizophrenia, I don't know the current data, but about 1% of the population of the world suffers from a thought disorder, a disorder of thought. People call it schizophrenia. I won't bore you with all the positive and negative symptoms and all that stuff. It don't make a damn anyway. So, anyways, I had a horrible, horrible time in the program, but I did one good thing, and I worked with a kid, and this kid was violent, absolutely combative, violent. And when we did our initial assessment before they come to the day treatment program, I had already prompted the parents that we will probably be taking the child to what we called the resolution room or the R room. Resolution room was a room where you put kids that were having real combative behavior, and they would be put in a room, and we would latch the door and observe the client as they progressed or de-escalated from their combative events. Now, my rule of thumb, and this is in no book, but a kid that has a normal physiology and wants to throw a real ripper, they could go about 30 minutes, about a half an hour. That's normal. I know it sounds bad, but 30 minutes of really raising Cain, if they're really mad, was about it. And then they'd just be plumb out, exhausted. Well, these kids would go for 2 hours. The things that I saw through those windows and the things that I had to observe for their safety, it would curl your hair, what I saw. They would do just so this one kid came in and we knew it was time to go. Father helped me. We took him down to the resolution room. I showed him how the process worked, and I said, okay, if you observe now, he's taking his shirt off, but for safety's sake, he might put it around his neck. We can't allow that. So I'd have to go in there and get the shirt from him. And not all the time, but there was a certain amount of time you'd be sitting in there and looking at a naked kid, spitting on the window, cussing you with every word he knows, smearing feces. It was rough. And on top of it all, I worked with a teacher. God knows this teacher. It's like he came from a Charles Dickens novel. He was he was just such a bastard. I don't think he liked kids, but he was vested in the school system. He was in so long, he was short timing it. He was trying to get done to his retirement so he could move his ass to Florida. That's pretty much all he talked about. So most of my therapy with the kids in my class consisted of how to deal with him. He was the absolute object of every session that I ever did. Because our supervisors weren't going to do anything. His supervisor was new. My supervisor, surprise, surprise, didn't like me. And I'll tell you that story in a minute. But anyways, I worked every manipulative way I could just to get him to talk nice to the kids. And I did get him to lessen his behavior. But he would scream at the kids and he would yell at the kids and he'd say, I'm tougher than you. And my supervisor wanted me to buffalo him, wanted me to get him under control. I'm like, I'm not his supervisor. Why are you asking me to supervise a person that I don't even supervise? And then his supervisor and my supervisor got double teamed up on me and said I need to be doing. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I just fit to be tied. My supervisor, I swear she couldn't have poured piss out of a boot if the directions were written on the eel. I don't know where they found her, but she actually called me one morning and said, "Well, could you help me get to work?" And I'm like, "What?" I mean, sure, yeah. She's like, "Well, I need a little more help than that, actually." And I'm like, "What?" And she said, "Well, it seems that I started up my Jeep, and then I closed the door and I locked the keys in the Jeep while the engine's running." And I'm like, "How in the hell?" But be that as it may. So I drove her, or, I drove down there. We got her. I took her to the Jeep dealership, and we got the VIN number. I told her how to get the VIN number, and we went and got a key, got it. But anyways, so our contention happened when she was deciding that we needed to expand our services past day treatment. And day treatment was an all-inclusive by the state definition. Day treatment would include therapy, would include group therapy, observation in the classroom, stuff like that. Pull outs to talk to the kid if they were doing something. It was just an all included. But her supervisor, who was our new clinical director, uh, put it upon her that the program needs to be making some money. And this was right before state privatized mental health. So we need to make some money. So what we decided, or what they decided to do, is they were going to have an aftercare group for the kids that had graduated from the day treatment program and pull them in once a week and follow them as they go back to the regular school. They transition, they get a diploma and stuff like that. Well, here was the gig. See, most of our kids had Medicaid. And what they wanted me to do is they wanted me to bill Medicaid for the Medicaid kids, but the kids didn't have no Medicaid. They would get the service for free. If you can't see what's wrong with that, I'll explain it. And there could be a million people that'll, by God, disagree with me, but day treatment being a package treatment, day treatment, the aftercare should have been included with that. Heck, it's aftercare, and if they're going to bill, it's part of the day treatment package. And if it's just truly a free service, kind of a prophylactic treatment to see how they're doing and following their case, that would have been fine too. But this was a cash grab for the state money, state Medicaid dollars. I didn't like it. And I said, I do not think this is ethical. And the director, she said, by gosh, it was ethical. And the director said, by gosh, it is ethical. And I'm like, if we're differentially billing these folks, it's to me not ethical. Oh, they didn't give two squirts of goose shit. What was what? I'm doing it. Now, first session we did. Then the second session I missed because I had sinus problems and was going to get my sinuses. Well, I was going for my first sinus operation. So she writes me up and calls the director down, and they both just tear into me. I mean, right up to their elbow. They was up my ass, yelling, mad and this, that, the other thing. And so then the next week, I just came in and politely put the papers on my super. Uh, these will be the dates I have to have off because I'm having sinus surgery. They're going to do a turbinate reduction and a septoplasty, and they're removing my adenoids and tonsils. And boy, her face dropped because she thought I laid out of work because I was just refusing to do the. And I was laid out of work because my sinuses, the damn pollen got me so bad. I, you boys may remember, I'm not really good outdoors with pollen. I'm not. If you notice, I'm rubbing my damn nose every 2 seconds. Uh, yeah. But anyways, pardon me for rubbing my nose every 2 seconds. But anyways, so that was it as far as I'm concerned. She was in for me. She was ready to take me down, boy. And soon to pass, one of my co-therapists come to me and he said, Fred, you better watch your back. Supervisor's wanting to catch you on anything so she can fire you. And I was like, really? His name was Pat. And if I could just cry a bit for Pat, I hope he's good. He's the only man that ever sacrificed his damn job for me. Such a good man. Good religious Catholic fellow. Such a good man he was. He is. Boy, I hope he had serious medical problems. I don't want to go into it, but he said, yes, our supervisor, Miss So and so, come down and said, I want you to watch Fred's time and I want you to let me know if he's so much as 10 minutes late so I can get him. Figure something out to get him. She went down there and asked to do that. Well, I said, ain't that a peach? So I went to the director, the new director. He was from California, married one of his students, and that man could fall in shit and come out smell like a rose. I liked the fella, but he always felt slimy to me. I don't know. He made me cry too once. He laid into me. He was pretty crap. But anyways, so I went to the director and said, this lady's trying to think of a way to fire me. And he was in on it. And you know what he did? He fired the man that told me. He fired Pat. Scurvy piece of shit he is. He's still around here. He teaches. I hope he remembers how many terrible things he did. I know the terrible things I did, but he probably don't even give it another thought. He was a charismatic man. But yeah, he fired Pat. And for some reason after that, there was kind of a truce that happened. And things weren't great, but I did the best I could there. One case I want to tell you about. One of my favorite little fellas that was there. Boy, I hope his family's taking care and helping him. But he had a pure, bona fide thought disorder. He heard things. He had he had a he had a he had a psychotic process, auditory hallucinations, hearing voices and mumbling. And to help him, whenever he used the bathroom, well, he was messing in his pants. He was having accidents. And in therapy, I would talk to him, and I was like, "Can I help in any way? What's going on that you're having accidents?" He's like, "When I go in the bathroom, I hear voices out of the vents. It scares me." So, as a good master's level licensed psychologist would go, I would go in. The bathroom was like a group of, there was like two or three stalls and then a urinal. And whenever he needed to use the restroom, I would go take him to the restroom and I'd sit by the sink. I'd turn the water on, wash my hands, and I'd just talk and la da 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 and just make noise and just la da 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 do 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 and just make noises and stuff. And then he'd use the bathroom, and I'd get him to wash his hands, and then he'd leave. And oh, he was such a cutie pie, just such a good kid. So I did that for a while, and then come past that, I had just saved up enough money for my first house. I'm sorry, boys, it's gone about an hour. I'm gonna keep going though, but through movie magic, you can go. Well, so so I had just purchased my first house. I was very proud. I saved up $10,000 in a year by basically just not doing anything but coming home. And to save that money, I played EverQuest, that online game. And I would, back then, you could sell anything on eBay. I'd sell characters, I'd sell items, I'd sell, I'd sell cleric with J boots, level 1, get $50, $100, you know. But sold my 64 Chevelle, which killed me. I didn't have to sell it, but my the person that raised me, he only had 15 acres to park a vehicle, and it was constantly in his way. And he nagged me and he nagged me and he nagged me, so I had to sell my 64 Chevelle. I rebuilt that engine, worked on it myself. Loved that car. Had 400,000 miles on the chassis. Imagine it's still going. Did put all the springs on it, changed springs. Did be that as it may. I'm veering. I'm sorry. I need to be talking. This is about jobs. It's about jobbing and what you can expect possibly. But anyways, so saved up, bought my house, little starter house back then. Oh gosh, what was, I don't know, 2005. That's what it was. Around 2005. I paid 100. Well, I got a loan for $100,000 for a little 2 bedroom. Uh, let's see, it was 1.5 bath, 2 bedroom basement. Boy, I felt so good. I was so proud of myself. I hope you boys get to do that. The way things are now, golly. That's part of being an American, is being able to have your own place, your own domicile, your own place. But anyways, so proud. Well, 2 weeks after I bought my house and bragged about that, everybody, the big man calls me. We'll call him Bitch Ruin. So anyways, Bitch Ruin calls me in and says, "Oh, I got you. He says, well, I got to reassign you, or uh, you can always, we'll always resign you. You know, or we can let you go if you want, and you can look for another job. Smiling big like a crocodile to me. He knew I just bought that house. I couldn't be just. He knew he had me. He says, "Welcome to the wonderful world of sex offender treatment." Oh, oh, no. Yes. Man with a house, just bought a house. I'm on my own, don't have nobody. There ain't no backups. There ain't no plan. There ain't nobody to go cry to. You know, I had a house and I had a payment, and this was the first shackle around my neck, financial wise. Big one, you know. I mean, I bought my van, 5-year loan. I paid that off good. They had good credit. I was not a spendy guy. So yeah, he had me by the balls, man. Right by the short and curlies. He had me. He knew so I went to do that. And so I did sex offender treatment. I did 3 groups a week, one at night, or maybe it was 4 groups a week. And then also, when I came to work under my supervisor that did sex offender work, now he was a nice fella. He was an emotionally detached a fella as I've ever seen in my life, though. I've never seen something just roll off somebody like Teflon. If I ever learned my limitations in life, it was doing sex offender work, doing that work. Boys, it killed my soul. It killed my soul. Not only was it welling up problems of my own sexual abuse from the woman that raised me, but here I was hearing the stories. And it would be group sessions. There'd be some individual work. So 3 groups a week, all the guys would come in and they would do what we would call a detailed description of their offense or offenses. Or they could do a short version, depending on the time. A short version was just them stating who they are, what crimes they've committed, and then they would check in. So check-ins would come in, and then everybody would have their homework, and we discussed the homework, and we talked about the offense pattern, and preoccupation, all. But that work was so hard, so hard, and it put a damper on me. Um, that was probably when I was drinking too much. Now, mind you, drinking too much is a pretty damn general statement. You know I never drank and drove ever. You know I wouldn't drink and drive because my buddy in high school, Jody, died. I'd never do that. I could never think of taking somebody's life. Didn't drink and drive. Now, to me, drinking and driving, I'm not saying having 1 beer and driving after an hour. That's not drinking and driving to me. 2 beers, having something to eat, hour and a half to driving. And that's typically if I was going to be doing it, that's about it. But when I would get home, you know, I could drink 5, 6 beers, no problem. You know, I wasn't turning up handles of wild turkey. It wasn't getting, it wasn't lost weekend stuff, but it was it was a tough time. Then with the adolescent kid, with the adolescents, it was there was a lot more hope with the adolescent kids that had um, done these things. The hope being that they can change. They're still their personalities are still in flux. They're still able to mold their way of living. And I'll tell you right now, if you can look at a mama in the face and tell her that she has to get an understanding in her mind that her little boy is a sex offender, you can tell anybody any damn thing after that. There's nothing that breaks your heart more than having to tell a woman that her boy is a sex offender, adolescent sex offender. It's so hard. I'd get death threats. My boss didn't do nothing. I'd come in, voicemail, one I called Mr. Clean. He was a mean one, a big fella. Talked about his own daughter like she was some kind of, oh, he was so fixed into his delusions. Oh, she's just horny. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, she's 5. She's 5 years old. She won't put no clothes. I mean, he was so defensive of his boy, who was, I guess, the apple in his eyes. I'm like, you can't, that's not, that's not how anybody sees this, sir. And I don't know, but anyways, so I did that, and one case, and it was Mr. Clean's boy come in. This several years later, the boy called me. He was now a man. And he called me and he said, I need some help. And I said, well, what kind of help do you need? And he said, I need paperwork showing that I completed the program, the adolescent sex offender program. And I'm like, well, I can help you out with that. And he says, well, I'm divorced and my wife won't let me see my child. And she's saying that I didn't go through, that I'm a sex offender. And I don't know what was going on. I don't have a judgment. What happened to him when he did what he did, he was 12 years old, 13 maybe. I I don't know, you know. But he was 20 some years old at this point. And he was a client that was requesting his clinical record. So I got the papers and I got where it showed that he completed the program. And I remember him coming up and me giving him the papers. And I looked at him and I said, have you been doing good? And he's like, yes, I learned a whole lot from you. And I said, well, you stuck with it. You came to the classes, you came to the groups. And I said, I bet you're pretty glad you finished the group. And it shows here on this paper that you completed this group. And he said, yeah. And then I said, what did you think back then? And he said, I thought you were a son of a bitch. I hated your ass. I said, well, your dad threatened to murder me no less than 2 times. So And I said, well, I hope for the best for you. But anyway, so I did that for a good amount of time, more than I like to remember. One case in particular got away, and I wish it hadn't. Man transferred to another part of the state, got out of our hands, and I think he went to somewhere where they just kind of let him go, and he was just evil. I can't say evil; it doesn't make sense clinically, but he was he was a psychopath. He was a psychopath, a clear-cut case. He was just a mm. But anyways, so here, you know, I was going through pretty tough times during these years, and I handled it the best I could. And when my friends that I hung out, they'd all tell sex offender jokes, I'd laugh it off, and you know, it was I was just trying to roll with the punches, you know. But anyways, so after that, uh, so I finally got to where the state was not offering county mental health, and that's because all the private therapists out there in the wilds, they wanted to they felt like that the system was not allowing competition for them to get clients. Now, in my point of view, that was a big load of bull. The clients that we worked in didn't have a pot to piss in and a rear window to throw it out of. They didn't have no money. They didn't have nothing. And how it turned out is when everything privatized, what happened was the private providers could keep the money clients, the clients that could pay, and then they'd throw back the fish that couldn't. And the state still had to handle those cases. It just there we were handling the same cases, the cases that were like difficult, folks with thought disorders, thought schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. Some of these folks, they're not regular with their treatment. Their behaviors get in the way of coming in, and they don't regularly take their meds. They're tough cases. But regardless, this is when I made a jump to a provider right before this privatization thing came into the state. So I worked at a place, and I worked because of my experience with the young people at the day treatment place. I worked with uh, emerging cases of psychosis, trying to educate and help families understand what their 18-year-old and older young adult is going through as far as a thought disorder, and trying to let them know that they're not going to outgrow this. This is going to be a lifelong hardship, and we have to know. A lot of families they were very avoidant to hear news like this. It was very, you know, and that was hard work. And I did dialectic behavior therapy with uh, folks that suffered from what's known as borderline personality disorder. And if that's probably too in depth, but that was those folks, they were really in such a bad state as far as being questioning if they were loved, and it's really a tough issue. And working with them, I used dialectic behavior therapy. We used the books. This was when it first came out. I was very excited to Lenahan's model of dialectical behavior therapy. It's really amazing stuff, and we'll frequently talk about trying to stay in my wise mind, you know. But so working with emerging folks that are having emergent psychotic breaks, and working with uh, folks that have other serious persistent mental illness. I worked with what's known as Clauserill group, which are the folks that are really having tough times as far as psychosis and things like that. And Clauserill group was tough to watch. Those folks were really choosing a lot of bad side effects for not being, you know, psychotic. The side effects on these people want to know why they don't take medicine. People don't take medicine because of the side effects. It ain't like taking a damn Atiforstatin for your fat boy syndrome, like, you know, Atiforstatin, you forget one up. Whoops, I forgot my Atiforstatin one morning. These meds had to be, by golly, by the clock, you know. The folks are having to remember, so the Clauserill group was to really monitor the folks that are having the serious, and folks under those kind of medications, their affect, their feelings, their emotions get very flat, and I'm talking very, how do you do today? I'm okay. My gums are bleeding a little bit, but they're okay now. They did, they they were kind of talking on autopilot. But I did that for a little bit of time, and that is when uh, I had another falling out with supervisor. This supervisor was a college basketball player. Now, I'll tell you, uh, they must have played very hard because they appeared to be in pain most of the day. And they were a licensed clinical social worker. And then for some reason, they had it out for me. By that time, I had I had created uh, some mastery of what I was doing. I was I was seeing some improvements in folks sometimes. If you're lucky, you're getting like 30%, If you can help 35% of the people you have, if you can help 50% of the people you see, I bow down to you. You'd be my damn hero. But anyways, um, and while I was doing this, I was still doing a little bit of sex offender work as far as the adolescents and stuff. But uh, things would come down, and she would make ethical errors. And I, but the thing is, she was putting them on me, so I have to, and that appeared to be insubordination. So, and I actually had another supervisor that actually come and warned me, and he was such a cool dude. He, he was a nice guy. He's a good guy. but I remember him so fondly. Big, heavy set guy, and he was leaving. He was leaving. Um, Somehow somebody started hating on him, and they rushed him out. But it's a little easier to find a job as a PhD. Well, used to be back then, anyways. PhD psychologist. But anyways, so he warned me before he left. Said, "Man, that person hates you, hates you." And I was like, "Well, damn, partner, I appreciate you letting me know, you know." So, anyways, she put me in an office that was right across from the men's room. My office was an old broom closet. It was so small I could hardly get two people in. One time I had my office was so small. My office was so small that I one time had a client come to see me for her first time. Nice lady, had some depressive symptoms. I could understand. She also was concerned with her weight and was having a difficult time. I would say she probably weighed, I would guess, 450 pounds. And I couldn't even work with her because my office was so small. I had to transfer the case because my office was too small. That's how small my office was. So, anyways, anything else from that? I do remember working with a kid. He's 18, and this was his first psychotic break. And the the family came in, and I set them down, and I told them and talked with them about psychosis and how it manifests and what are the positive symptoms and the negative symptoms. And they weren't having nothing of it. They just thought he was a lazy person, or he just you know needed to get a job, pull his head out of his ass, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is like, unfortunately, it's forever. You know, the meds we got, we can pray for better medicine all the time. We can pray for, you know, advancements in medicine to help improve uh, his quality of life. But you got to let this, you know, we've got to work on things, you know, we've got to set up powers of attorneys, or who's going to help take care of him if unfortunately you two pass, and how, you know, and talk about options of independent living or group home living and stuff like that. They wouldn't have nothing of it. Wouldn't have nothing of it. He just needs to pull his head out of his ass. One time I was going to go visit this, but he stopped coming, of course. And I was going to visit a girlfriend of mine, and and I went into the grocery store to get something to cook, and he was out there just standing at the grocery store, and his pants were tore down one leg, and he had a gash on his leg. And I walked up to him. I said, "Do you know who I am? You know?" And he said, You're you were my you were a teacher one time. You were my teacher." And I said, "No, I wasn't a teacher." And I said, "Do you know what day it is? You know? And do you know where you at today, buddy?" And he couldn't. So I called the emergency hotline that we had, and stayed there. Then I went ahead and shuffled on after I made sure he was okay. I hope he's okay. So, anyways, while I was in that office across from the bathroom, my next supervisor, she came. She said, "You know what?" She said, "Pretty soon we're going to split, and the place you're working at, they're going to become a private entity. They're going to be a private, nonprofit, 501c entity, and we are going to be a call center for the state." And she said, "I noticed that when you are on the phone, you have very nice phone manners. You have good manners on the phone." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And I was trained when, uh, my dad, like I said, well, I don't want to say dad. That's honor somebody that doesn't deserve the name. Would y'all stop it? He doesn't even deserve to be called. The person that raised me would make me answer the phone like a office staff, like, if he took off half a day or took off for the day. I had my notepad and, "Hello, this is such such office," and then he also taught me the trick where even if he was there, he'd come up to the phone. I'd be, "Hello, this is blah 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 blah," and then he taught me. He would say, "Now listen, you pick up that phone and you talk to them nice as you can. And then if I'm standing next to you, I want you to repeat their name so I can hear it." So I pick up the phone, blah 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 blah, and then, "Oh, and what is your name, sir? Is it Steve? Steve who? You know?" And then it was like, "Give me a phone," or he's like. So I'd write it down. But anyways, she noticed that I had good phone manners. So then I transferred into what they call now is screening and triage referral, or the call center. And we did appointments, and we did questions about mental health, and we did you know uh, things that pertain, just people calling wanting advice on something, or and uh, I really enjoyed that work back when they allowed you to talk to the person and not go through this script tree of bullshit, where you could really connect to somebody on the phone. That was a pleasure, to sit and try to share knowledge. It was a pleasure. I could handle all of them. I was good at it. I was real good at it. Suicide calls, man. We worked as a team. That was the best teamwork environment I was ever in. Best teamwork environment ever. We pulled together good. We got along good. I worked with nurses. I worked with another counselor. And this was also the time where I got a second clinical license, because when I was trying to apply for different things and trying to move up in my career, I thought another license may help, because I couldn't afford a PhD and I'm working, I'm paying for a house. So I got an LPC license. So I got that. But the call center, my boss was pretty dadgum cool lady. She really was. She only hollered at me one. She only hollered at me and another worker one time. She gave it to us too, but I forgive her and I still like her to this day. And if I saw her down the street, I'd damn sure want to talk and see how she was. She was she was well off. she's well off. She's well off. And the reason she got mad at us was because we were trying to figure out who's going to do after hours duty because we had to all take nights of the week to where we took home the on-call phone so we could go to the hospitals and see if we needed to send somebody to a local mental health hospital or had to get them checked in at this kind of hospital or try to direct the ER doctors to give them the mental health help support. So, but unfortunately, she got in trouble because she was supposed to be working, but it turns out she was not where she was supposed to be, I guess. And her boss could tell because of caller ID. I mean, the number was directly in it. I'm not going to say what it was because she was good. She is a good lady. She really was. She was a lot of fun. And ah, one ass chewing ain't so bad now, is it? But she did. She had to resign. And then we got us the coworker uh, that got chewed out with me. He applied for the job and got it. Oh, what a bright man! What a bright person he was. Again, great to work with that. If I could go back in time and worked all the rest of my time, I should have just stayed in the call center. You know, yeah. But I was trying ever so much to go up. And what happened is, as the state went to uh, privatization, we became like an insurance company for folks that don't have insurance, if that makes any sense. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm not going to say where it was. And hell, it's all a bunch of bullshit anyways. You can't believe a thing I say. You know what a liar I am. Hell, I dream up most of these stories. Fiction is my thing. So let's keep on with some fiction. I'll tell you some more fiction. So, anyways, as we separated, not, we weren't doing clinical work. I was still doing some testing. Um, I did capacity to proceed to trial evaluations, which those were interesting. And one was particularly weird because I had to recuse myself from one of those evaluations because one of them was a person that I went to high school with, which was very awkward. I won't say what he did, but it was terrible. But yeah, Fred, is that you? Oh my God, that those things happen. I had somebody, an associate that I wasn't friends with. Turned out he got charged, found guilty of sex offense. Somebody I knew, you know. It's crazy times. But anyways, call center work. Took suicide calls, took the information calls, booked appointments. We were booking appointments for all the providers, substance abuse assessments for truck drivers, a whole different thing. Doing all the calls, doing all that stuff. Um, my favorite call, and I'd gotten maybe 4 or 5 of these while I did call center work. Oh, all right, here it goes. Now remember, this ain't for youngins. All you young people need to close your ears. This is for over 18 only. So I pick up the phone. Hey, it's Fred Hophead, blah 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 blah. How can I help you? Voice on the other line appeared to be a female voice. I got a real bad problem. And I said, well, ma'am, uh, I try to help you how I can. Why don't you tell me? She's like, I'm horny. And back then, now I mean, I would have done it anyways, but they do these what they call secret shopper calls where they kind of see how you do and behave and stuff like that. I don't know if it was a secret shopper call or whatever, but I mean, that's just not my inclination. That this kind of stuff go. I was at work, work is work. Work is where you work. That stuff was out of my, and I was like, okay. And she said, I've got an itchy clit. And I was like, okay. She's like, and I was kind of beside myself. And she said, I think I need to get a good fucking, I need somebody to fuck me good. And I was thinking real fast I said, well, ma'am, here's my advice. I would advise you choose your partner wisely and make sure you use as safe a protection as you can and have a good time. And you have a good day, ma'am. And I hung up the phone. I'm like, what? My coworker at the call center for a while, he sat behind me. He's ex-Marine. He was lucky as shit. He was a lucky dude. Tons of money, double dipping, state, federal. He had all the money rolling in. He uh he accused me of stealing his stapler. It's like, what you take my stapler for? I'm like, just like the movie Office Space or whatever. But what are you taking my stapler for? And I'm like, uh, I didn't take it. You can have my stapler. Take my stapler. Have it. About a month goes by. I don't give a shit. I mean, I just grab over, use it, then put it back. And he comes in one morning and he's all like this. He's like, here's your stapler. And I'm like, that's your stapler. Hey, my stapler. Don't you remember I took it from you? He's like, I found my stapler in the bottom of my drawer. he, he was a good enough fella. He was brainless though. Man, he was a terrible therapist. I know for a fact he caused one man suicide. I bet he never had a damn guilt guilt laden thought after the event. I bet he went home and slept, never questioned two pieces about it, that it was absolutely his doing. He riled a man up. He did. He got too Marine with him or something. But anyway, nobody ever died that I know that I did therapy with. I've always I can't see, but not that I know. To do no harm. That's the number one ethics. Do no harm. Okay, so anyways, phone work. Come to find out, phone work was around the time me and your mama started dating. And it was also a very sad time because Gloria had died. And I was going through many emotions during that time. But I missed Gloria because she was just like family for me. She's the only family I ever, besides you two boys, Gloria is my only other family member I had. And she died. So my brother died. She died. I never knew him, but we'll talk about brothers maybe. But anyway, so call center. Then I decide to apply for what they call care coordination. Care coordination is a job where you get to ride around and visit folks that have been released from a mental health hospital. I really enjoyed that job. I did. I did. I was on the move. By this time, I had a family. I had a wife. I had two step young'uns that I loved dearly. Oh, I was flying high. Flying so great. Oh, you boys could probably remember those years. Those were great years. Oh, I think back at those times. I had a coworker. She was the best damn funnest. We'd we'd hop in the car and go visit clients together. We'd do some from her list and me from my list. And she was just the best dadgum person. She was funny, fun, had a great sense of humor. Man, I tell you what, she was just, oh, she was a great, great coworker. And we worked in a big room and had cubicles then. And then I had some terrible person. I just, oh, she's probably horribly overpaid and still being a terrible person. That's just seems part and parcel of how things work. But anyways, things going really good. And then I had a great supervisor. He was great supervisor. And you know, it's funny. Not 2 years ago, he called me crying, asking me. He's like, "Fred, was I a good supervisor?" And I'm like, "Of course you was a good supervisor. You were the best one of the best supervisors I ever had. You were awesome. You were good with people. Still are good with people. I hope he's doing well." But anyways, so another thing that I had to do since I was kind of like a what happened is when the state split, when things privatized, what happened was on the state side of things, where we were the insurance company that kind of manages Medicaid dollars, we manage Medicaid dollars, and we manage state funded dollars to help folks without Medicaid so they could help pay for therapy. And one of the things that we did was called cases of concern. And I was considered a senior therapist at that point and had a wide range of work that I had done. And I reviewed the case. And this was my undoing. This is this really destroyed me inside in a lot of ways. I won't tell you which licensing board it was, but I'll tell you what. I'll tell you boys right now. Licensing boards are a bunch of bullshit. I don't care what anybody says. Licensing boards are bullshit, and I will be glad to be turning mine in at the end of this year. I'd rather shovel pig shit and work on. So, anyways, let me tell you what happened. So, I did this case of concern. I'm looking through the information, and something didn't add up because the person that typed up the report were typing up things like child is dropped in the swimming pool to see if it can swim on its own. Mom just watches the kid as it's at the bottom of the pool. Mom states, I'm not I'm not going to wait on this brat hand and foot to feed it. It's going to eat when I eat, or it's not going to eat at all. I'm going to spank my kid whenever I want to. Just a lot of statements that were very dangerous. And in any helping profession, you have a duty to warn, a duty to call in suspected abuse, adult abuse, child abuse. Hell, I've probably called in 200 cases. I imagine DSS hated me, but you suspect it, you say something, you call it in. That's the mechanism. So I'm reading all this stuff, and the therapist is wanting to know where to go with the case. And I call up the therapist and say, well, the first place to go is to call DSS. You have to call this in. It's a state law. We have a duty to warn it that something bad's happening to this baby. She says, I won't do it. I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, why not? She said, my boss told me I wasn't supposed to, I shouldn't do it. No, don't call it in. And I said, but your license says you got, this ain't about your boss telling you not to do. You have a ethical bound duty to warn, to call DSS. Well, I'm not going to do it. And I'm just scratching my head. This is one of the most, other than don't sleep with your clients, this is a cardinal frickin' rule. So I was in a pickle. So I went to another person with the same clinical license as me, which is by the statutes what we're supposed to do. And then we both called the therapist. And she again admitted that she did not call and she wasn't going to call, and her boss told her not to, and she's not going to do it. Coupled with the fact that several months prior, our medical director sent an email out to the entire organization that we are not to call in CPS and APS reports because we're an insurance agency. We're not providers, which was just the goddamnedest thing I've ever read in any place that's supposed to help people. So anyways, get another person with my license. We both call her. It's a conference call at this point. She says the same thing. She says, I'm not going to no, my boss told me not to, I'm not going to do it. And you could have knocked me over with a feather. And I pleaded with her. I was like, please, I'm going to have to report you to the board. Don't make me do this. I said, we'll call together. Me and you call together right now. This is imperative. We can't just sit around. What if the kids, we got to do something quickly. We'll call together. You can blame me if you want, but we need to call this in. No, I'm not going to do it. I called it in. A couple weeks later, the report that I called in and the things I read for the report was substantiated. The investigation was substantiated that there was due cause to be concerned about this situation. I did what I was supposed to do. And this is where I'm going to get pretty tore up right here. So I turned her into the board. and they said she hadn't done anything wrong. The licensing board told me she didn't do anything wrong. God damn it to hell. I did what I was supposed to do, and they fucked me. Those son of a bitches. They fucked me. I don't know why they get that money, but they can go fuck themselves, every one of them. By then, all the bosses had heard about it. It's all the bosses. I swear to you both boys, I would not turn somebody in for no reason. I swear to you on everything I value. They fucking destroyed me at that point. They destroyed me. Well, okay, here's what happens now. Well, if she's cleared and she didn't do nothing wrong, how does that make me look at work? It was like I was in a dream bizarro world where upside down was right side up and everything was backwards in life. You boys may not have remembered this time, but this is when I resigned. I resigned. And I regret that I resigned. But at that point, I had resigned myself from ever wanting to help any damn body from all the shit that I've seen. See, she was found not guilty. I was found guilty. I was a predator. I was trying to ruin a new therapist's career, you see. Well, the red light was on me. Oh, yeah. And they threw it on me. You boys don't remember. I was driving across 4 counties. They were giving me cases. I was driving, I felt like I should be driving a transfer truck. I was driving all over. My name was Mud there. My supervisor, who had the same license as me, who was on the phone and all three of us talked, he thought the whole world went crazy. He absolutely flipped. He did. He's like, nah. They left me out to twist. But that case was substantiated. That that evidence of abuse. They they took that case. They said, yes, there's something going on in that house. Maybe I saved that kid's life. I hope that kid's doing well. I don't. You could, if you pointed out the kid, I could. I just read the papers. But they wounded me, grievously wounded me, man. Boys, I hope both you boys don't ever have to face that. I hope that when you're on the right side of something, people see it. Because there's nothing more mind boggling than seeing something that you believe so much in. Ethics, a code of ethics, ethical standards, and ethical principles. And seeing that kind of stuff happen. So they worked me half to death, gave me crap cases from one side of 4 counties to the other. I was driving all over the place. and I thought I could make it with the money we had socked back from when Glory passed away. I thought we could make it, but well, money was flying out at an alarming rate. But anyways, I resigned in disgrace, feeling disgraceful. Boy, I tell you, that was just worst thing I ever went through. And because my grandmama had schizophrenia, and with all the gaslighting I got as a child, and the way that my shit, I was pumped, I was, I was gaslit so much as a kid, I could have probably blew out a candle and blew up the county. I had so much gaslight in me. You know what gaslighting is? Yeah, gaslighting, man. I was just, I mean, I wouldn't even know if a cat was there unless I touched it. You know, I couldn't even know what was going on anymore. So that's when I resigned, and I shouldn't have, because boy, did it cost my career. It did. It cost my career. 3 years out, but I got to tell you, I got to see you boys all the time. I got to see you boys come home from school. I got to spend time with y'all. Y'all were being kids. Y'all did probably, but it was so freaking nice to be with y'all. I consider that the best 3 years of my life. Those times being around with you and Devin doing your stuff. I always felt bad because I always wanted you to come in and play games. I don't know, Devin. I don't know. I love you so much, Devin. You've had a tough time with me, but I can understand being, I can understand anybody being standoffish, but I love you more than anything. But I got to have Noah right here. Got to play games with Noah. Got to talk to Noah. Got to get to know Noah. Got to keep an eye on Noah. Got to keep an eye on Devin. Make sure you guys was doing well. So for about 3 years, I was doing landscaping work, and I volunteered uh, at a place, and unfortunately, even doing the volunteer work, the lady that I cared about so much, the county just threw her under the bus for somebody that was a different politics. They just threw her away. And then they barred me from ever working for the county for a volunteer job. I quit. I quit a volunteer job and I didn't give notice, and they banned me for life from working in the county. A volunteer job. Volunteering. Man, I'll tell you, volunteering's dangerous. Shit. Ain't nothing safe. So, anyways, come past that our money was running short. Had to get back to it. And that's when I got into the wonderful world of vocational rehabilitation. And I want to tell every vocation, I tell you, boys, do not do that job. That job will suck your soul away. And to anybody out there that accidentally hears this and is a vocational rehab specialist, you guys, hats off to you. I couldn't do it. I worked 2 counties. Well, hold on. Let's back up. I did get a job working as an in-home family therapist at some fly-by-night company. Let's take money from the state, and that was the worst. That was worse. That was terrible work. In-home family work, I'm not a big believer in, but cry if you think different, but you can't. People in their home are stuck in a power differential. It's their home. I'm sitting in my recliner, and you're telling me, bro, it's eh, it's a money grab from the state as far as I'm concerned. But anyways, that job didn't work last long, and then I got hired at Voc Rehab. See, Voc Rehab was trying to find me a job because I was having such mental health issues myself, such issues and other issues. I was in therapy. I was in therapy myself. Boys, I've put a lot of time in therapy. Let me tell you what. Hell, I didn't just do it. I was in it. I was all up in it every chance I could get it. But I qualified for Voc Rehab. They thought I had bipolar disorder, so I was on bipolar meds. I slept fine, but I just let you can't diagnose yourself. When you're a therapist, you can't. It's you have to be the reflecting pool. You can't, you don't guess what. But anyways, I got Voc Rehab counseling, and they helped me. And finally, they just got fed up. Said, "Well, just come work with us." And the lady that said it, she said, "You need a job. You've got the credentials, and I may be damning you." And I'm like, "What?" And she was right. She damned me. For 3 years, I worked for Voc Rehab. It was terrible. I wasn't good at it, I guess, for one thing. My boss was raised by mannequins, had the personality of a brick. I mean, and I've never seen a bureaucracy where paper pushing was so revered in a I know one person in the office I worked at, he was revered because he made an extra form that was so fantastic. I'm not gonna tell you the form, but it was a complete bullshit form. I've never and one of my coworkers one time said, "We're making a difference in paper, not people," instead of "we're making a difference in people, not paper." And Uh, Folk Rehab is a joint venture between the federal government, which is federal regs, and state regs. You get to follow all kinds of regs. Hell, you can't have too many regs when you got the feds and the state involved. You got a state reg and you got the federal reg, and said, yeah. So yeah. So anyways, for me, Voc Rehab is basically how to waste somebody's time and in 10 months' time get them a job at McDonald's. That's all it was to it. The caseloads were huge. I had physical mental health caseload in one county, physical mental health caseload in another county. I didn't have, uh, I had 1/5 of an administrative assistant. I had half the time of a processing assistant, and I probably had 250 cases. And it was just coming in every and looking at each case and rubber stamping every little thing. You spent so little time with the person, and I don't know what it is so difficult. But the premise to me seems to be in Voc Rehab is you come in and you have to prove to them that you have a disability. If you don't have money, if you've never been diagnosed, you don't have a disability. Sorry, it's just the way it is. You could have a bad back your whole life. But until you get that paperwork, and some of the times people come to VR just so they could hopefully get some help, get an assessment. So there was that. But it would have been a better job if the people that ran the place, I guess, I've talked to people in other voc rehab offices, and there's good ones out there. And I'm not damning the whole profession, but I am not a voc rehab counselor. Boy, I was not. If I was not a therapist, I certainly was not a voc rehab counselor. I did that for about 3 years and tried to get into an independent living job, but they strung me along and strung me along. And come to find out, the job that I took, every person for the past 15 years that took that job didn't last no more than 3 years. I was just another one. That was just the poopy job at that office, apparently. Whatever. So next brings me to where I work now. And I won't talk about that one today. I've talked for 2 hours. I can't believe I've talked for 2 hours. But I'm not going to talk about where I'm at now. But you boys know where I work. And you boys know that it's bad. It's bad. It is really, really bad. There are some good folks there. Let me tell you what. There are folks there that are so amazing. I'm surprised they're even fucking there. And then there's some people there that I'm just like, damn. But I'll reserve that talk for later, depending on how things shake out, if you know what I mean. Still in limbo. So, anyways, that is my illustrious and illuminating career so far. I'd like to work till I'm 60 and then just fuck off and do whatever I want to. Get back into some hobbies, do this or that. I want you boys to know that if you ever want to talk to me about anything, boys, I love you dearly. I love both of you so dearly. Devin, I love you. Noah, I love you. There's nothing you can't call and talk to me about. I know you boys are both busy with your lives. You can always call and talk to me, 'cause sons, I've seen every damn thing. It just maybe I'll talk about my military a little bit someday. But it really warmed my heart, Noah, that you said you wanted me to keep doing these. If I wanted to tell anybody this, it'd be you guys. It'd be you both. So, all right. I'm going to turn off all my sentimentality and reel everything back in. Have a good cleansing breath. I love you both. It's April 8th or something. And I love you both very much. Have a great day.